All right, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the deep historical roots that form the absolutely massive, incredibly complex tapestry of American identity. When we talk about what makes someone or something American, it's super easy to just reach for simple symbols, right? Or we fall back on that classic melting pot metaphor. But the truth? The truth is far more layered, deeply diverse, and frankly, way more historically fascinating than that.
So, what does it actually mean to be American in a heavily diverse 21st century? We're tackling this profound question, which was actually the core of a fascinating 2007 study by Deborah J. Schildkraut. She essentially looked at our modern landscape and asked, as the United States gets more and more ethnically diverse, is the very baseline of what makes us American changing? It's a huge question. Are new demographics completely rewriting the old cultural rules?
To figure this out, we're going to hit 5 quick milestones. First, defining American identity. Second, the multiple traditions theory. Third, the first Americans. Fourth, early European settlers. And finally, a complex consensus.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, defining identity.
Schildkraut's study poses a really specific, brilliant question. Does our growing ethnic diversity, meaning a multicultural America, automatically mean we're shifting toward a nation defined by many different active belief systems, what she calls a multi-creedal America? For the longest time, public opinion research really tried to box American identity into one dominant ideology, but Schildkraut wanted to see if everyday people, coming from vastly different immigrant and ethnic backgrounds, are actually operating under totally different sets of American norms.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, the multiple traditions theory.
This is a massive concept in sociology. The multiple traditions theory argues that it is practically impossible to reduce Americanism down to one single simple checklist. Instead of one unified creed, this perspective says that being American involves a huge, wide-ranging, and, here's the kicker, sometimes totally contradictory set of norms. Like, you can highly value rugged individualism right next to community assimilation, and guess what? Both are considered fundamentally American.
Think about it like this. You have this outdated, old idea of a monolithic national identity, a single Americanism. Contrast that with the reality on the ground, a multi-creedal society packed with diverse, sometimes competing norms. And Schildkraut's data actually backs this up. She found that you simply cannot boil American identity down to a single dimension. But to really grasp why we are so beautifully contradictory today, we can't just look at modern survey data. We've got to look at the history of the land itself.
So, let's jump into Section 3, the first Americans.
To prove why this multiple traditions theory makes so much sense, just look at the sheer timeline of human diversity on this continent. We're talking tens of thousands of years, starting with groups crossing the Beringia land bridge up to 30,000 years ago. By 10,000 BCE, Paleo-Indians are well established. By 600 BCE, the Indigenous culture is literally shifting the earth to build massive mounds. This wasn't some blank slate waiting for a single identity. It was a vibrant landscape teeming with evolving societies for millennia.
To put the scale of these early societies into perspective, let's look at the number 20,000. That was the estimated population of the Mississippian city of Cahokia at its absolute peak in the 12th century. Located near what is now St. Louis, this city was built around the massive 100-foot-tall Monk's Mound. And get this, at that time, Cahokia actually had a larger population than London. It had a complex class system, vast trade networks, you name it.
And the regional diversity was just staggering long before any European ships arrived. In the Southwest, the Anasazi were engineering massive stone pueblos into sheer cliff faces. Up in the Pacific Northwest, indigenous cultures were thriving around salmon runs and rich potlatch traditions. Over in the Northeast, the Iroquois built a political confederation of 5 tribes that was so effective, it's widely believed to have influenced later U.S. government structures. Add to that Tahitian explorers building Hawaiian civilization by 1200 CE and the Taino people thriving in Puerto Rico by 1000 CE. It's a deeply complex map.
Moving right along to Section 4, early European settlers.
Now here's a date that might surprise you, 1075. Around this year, the medieval chronicler Adam of Bremen wrote down the earliest European mention of America, referring to Norse settlements in Vinland. Now sure, full-scale colonization didn't kick off then, but it perfectly highlights that European interaction with the continent started way earlier than the classic 1492 narrative. It's just one more thread in a very dense historical timeline. When that full European colonization did explode in the 16th and 17th centuries, it absolutely wasn't just one monolithic group moving in. You had the Spanish, the Dutch, the French, the British, all carving out distinct territories. From the Spanish setting up in the southwest to the Dutch in New Netherland, every single empire brought wildly different languages, religious traditions, legal systems, and economic goals. The actual foundation of European America was by definition fiercely multi-creedal from day one.
But tragically, this era of European settlement brought a catastrophic disruption to those existing indigenous societies we just talked about. Eurasian diseases, like smallpox and measles, caused massive, sweeping fatalities among the indigenous populations. Often, these illnesses decimated entire communities long before large-scale European settlement even reached those specific areas. It was a profound, devastating loss that fundamentally altered the continent, creating a highly complex and deeply painful historical foundation for the nation that followed.
Finally, let's pull all of this into Section 5, a complex consensus. Let's bring it back to Schildkraut's research. Her data reveals something truly remarkable about where we are today. Despite our wildly different backgrounds, most Americans actually share this complex view of what it means to be American. It's not that different ethnic groups live in ideological bubbles with entirely different creeds. Actually, scratch that. It's the opposite. Most Americans, regardless of where their ancestors came from, embrace that wide-ranging, sometimes contradictory set of norms. The consensus isn't uniformity. The consensus literally is the complexity.
So what's our big takeaway here? Our modern, multifaceted American identity is the direct, logical result of a continent that has literally never been just one thing. From the dozens of unique indigenous civilizations that thrived for millennia to the competing European empires that colonized the land, the United States was forged in a massive collision of different worlds. Schildkraut's research proves that today's Americanism is a direct reflection of that deep history. It's broad, it's layered, and it comfortably holds multiple traditions at once.
I want to leave you with a provocative thought, echoing the very title of Schildkraut's research. As we navigate a 21st century defined by even greater diversity, take a second to ponder your own beliefs. Which competing traditions and norms make up your personal definition of being American? And how does your own unique background fit into this incredible, continually unfolding story of a multi-creedal nation? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope it helps you see the deep history and the data behind our complex identity in a whole new light.